Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Today, we have a real treat for you because our guest today, there's no way to leave the conversation with her without feeling incredibly empowered, inspired, and ready to shatter every glass ceiling in your way. Today, we have Letitia Frye with us, who, after working her way to the very top of the male-dominated auction industry as a single mother juggling 5 jobs, has earned the title given to her by Alice Cooper of being the auction tainer. She has over 16 years of experience in the auction business and has raised over $500 million for charity, in the process collecting various accolades, such as being a 2018 finalist for an Athena Award, and also having the 1 in 10 Letitia Frye Excellence in Fundraising Award and the St. Jude Children's Research Hospital Letitia Frye Humanitarian Award, both being named after her. Her clients include St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, Alice Cooper's Solid Rock, and the Make-A-Wish Foundation. But despite her formidable success, Letitia is as humble as they come. Her life models of a philosophy of giving before receiving and giving in abundance with whatever resources you have, leaving everything you have on the table. There is no halfway with Letitia Frye, and that's a success and self-actualization strategy that is the focus of her first book, No Reserve: Take Ownership and Live Your Life Without Limitations, published by Sound Wisdom. This book provides advice on how to, and I'm going to quote from the book here, live life absolute, as is said in the auction industry, no reserve, no safety net, no limitations, endless opportunity. Both ebook and the print version are now available to purchase. So welcome, Letitia, and congratulations on your book's publication. I know this is a story that you've wanted to share for so long, and we're so excited that it's now available to everyone, and everyone can benefit from all of the wonderful insight and inspiration that you share. So thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and I have to say, I reread the book in preparation for our talk, and I just could not believe the second time through just how torn open and, really cleansed and refreshed and inspired and re-energized I was going through all of those incredibly raw and vulnerable stories that you share with us, from, leaving your first marriage to suffering a traumatic head injury to losing your first husband and later your +1 child that you talk about. Just amazing, difficult experiences that you learn so much from, that you share with us, and we're able to learn just the value of, giving even when we're at our bottom, and finding ways to really build our own value. So I think these are things that our readers would really love to hear more about, especially in the world right now when there's so much work we can be doing on ourselves.
Yeah.
So, so I want to begin talking about Landmines and Roses, which is a concept that you talk about in one of your chapters, and it comes from a game, right, that you used to play with your children. So I'd love, what's that?
We still do, even though they're teens, we still do this at the dinner table.
Oh, that's so fun. That's so fun. So yeah, I'd love to hear you sort of take us through what that game means, and share about how people listening to this can apply the same technique to make sure that they're not missing out on opportunities that are available to them, and that really making the most of both the really difficult times as well as the roses, the more positive times.
Exactly. So Roses and Thorns is a game I started with my kids when they were probably just like 5 and 6 years old, and they're now 16 and 18. And the reason is because the older they were getting, it was hard to get conversation going at the dinner table. And I had read about this game you can play called Roses and Thorns, where you went through and discussed in the day what were the things that you felt were thorns, difficult things you faced, and what were roses. And then ultimately in that discussion, it always came out that we had more roses than we had thorns. And then we would pretty much decide, why do you think that is? And most of it came down to the fact that it wasn't what happened to us so much as what we let it do to us, as well as our attitude through all of it. So I took that a step further in starting to apply it in life in general. And particularly, as you mentioned, I faced a series of adversities. Really, the divorce alone, and divorce is nothing to undermine for people. I know that it's something that's more common, but it's a very life upheaval and a very traumatic event. That's also a grieving event, because there is a death in the death of a marriage. That is one thing. And then to move from there over what I call my 5-year series of, okay, we're really going to hit Letitia up back to back with, car accidents and brain injuries and suicides and, all sorts of things. And what I started to understand is that in the midst, particularly after my brain injury, and for those of you that are listening, I was running on Thanksgiving morning. I'm a runner. And I was struck by a car, and I was thrown 15 feet in the air, landed on my head, and split my head open. And I suffered a traumatic brain injury. And those are horrible. They involve vertigo and seizures and PTSD. But one of the things in the midst of that time where I was desperately seeking some sort of balance, I realized that my life had pretty much been a life of joy with moments in despair. And suddenly my life was pure despair with a few moments of joy. How do I get that back? So identifying Landmines and Roses became part of my way to heal myself. So rather than just being a great way to get your kids to speak at the table, this was literally a life practice for me to start to pull my life back together. Because when you are in that place, I felt so low. I had no self-esteem. I had no value. I had no hope. I thought that my career was over. I thought my life as I knew it was over. So you start identifying Landmines and Roses, and you break it down to a day. Instead of a whole life event that's traumatic, you break it down to a day. And every day I would ask myself, okay, what are the landmines and what are the roses in life? A landmine is getting hit by a car. That's not just a thorn, that's a landmine. So it's, a suicide of a man that you once loved and were married to, that was the father of your children, suicide of a +1 child, those are landmines. But roses, there's so many more of them. And it's a perspective shift. So in identifying roses, it's going through your day to say, let's just take COVID, for example. Maybe people have had financial upheaval, and suddenly, extra money shows up, and that's a rose. Or maybe it's just the fact that you're all healthy and you're sitting at your dinner table. Maybe it's the fact that a rose would be, I got out of work early today. I was able to take a nap, and that really left me energized. And then I had time to spend with my family. There's small gifts that come every day, all day, but because we're always concentrating on those thorns or the landmines that knock you out, you're missing all the beauty of the roses in between. And what happens in that, and we'll get to this further in the interview because it ties back into giving, is that those roses ultimately help you start feeling more positive, because you're able to see more positivity, not only in your day, but in yourself. And you're starting to understand, maybe I'm not as a disaster, or maybe my life isn't as disastrous as I think it is, because there are more roses in my day than thorns. Yeah, I have vertigo and I have problems, but in there I have 2 beautiful children. When they'll write me something, they wrote me a poem, or when my mom, in fact, my daughter sat down in the midst of that and said, Mom, you've taught me, at that time she was 12, 13, difficult age. And she said, Mom, what you've taught me by watching you go out after life again is that life, it's not a matter of failure. Isn't just not doing something well. Failure is giving up. And she said, what I'm seeing in front of you is a woman that won't give up. And she was right. And that day when she said that to me, that's a rose. I actually wrote it down and keep it somewhere I can see it all the time, because I realized that in my struggle and in my ability to seek out the positivities, I'm showing my child the same. And so Landmines and Roses, it's great to be able to realize that, yes, life is struggling. It really is. But how long you suffer and how deeply you suffer ultimately comes down to you. And by being able to find the roses in your life and identify them on a daily basis, you'll find you'll have more roses than you have thorns, and overcoming landmines is through roses. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think in today's climate, there's a lot of pushback against, what's the buzzword is toxic positivity. And what I love about your approach is it's not a silver lining mentality. There's a need to acknowledge the weight of trauma and, the incredibly difficult times. But at the same time, there's momentum to not let that break you and to use that to drive you forward through
Yes.
that. And one concept that I think I latched on to help me negotiate the difference, you know, and to help push through different trials that I was encountering, especially during this time, was the distinction between issues and problems. So perhaps you could
Okay.
explain
So
to
all these
those listening.
different parts that we're talking about as we move through this interview, you'll see that they actually all tie together. And ultimately they tie together because they bring you back to what it is that's standing in your way from a limitless life. So all of these are actually tied back to a no reserve, which means to take off the limitations. So one of the things about roses and landmines that will tie into issues and problems is that, you know, there are more roses in life than there are landmines, trust me. And so when you can get a perception to start recognizing that and start seeing the positivities, it will help control the desire that your ego has to just move towards the negative and just give up. So issues and problems is there's a difference. And I would say COVID is probably, you know, I thought about this because when COVID struck, my kids looked at me and said, you know what, Mom, you got this, because we've been through a lot. We had problems, not just issues. I feel for people that have gone into this particular time in our world history, because it is a world, and didn't ever really have a problem, only had issues. And so here's the difference. And I know I outlined this in my book. When I was getting divorced, which again, I'm not minimizing divorce, it's a huge upheaval and it's a very traumatic experience. But when I was going through it, I came across a obituary for a 20-month-old little girl, and I thought, what is this little baby doing in the midst of these pictures of elderly people from like World War II in the midst of the newspaper? This was years ago when we still actually got the Sunday paper and read it. And I realized that although I didn't know how I was going to move, and I didn't know how I was going to have any furniture or have a job or any of that, I looked at this mom who was out there who just lost her child. So even though it seemed like I had insurmountable problems, as soon as I took a look at her, I thought, no, that's a problem. Burying your 20-month-old child, that's a problem. I have issues. Issues mean that, yeah, I'm under a temporary point of strain, okay? It doesn't mean that the world as I know it is over. In other words, it's not the end of my reality. Mm-hmm. So trying to come up with money is an issue. I mean, it may be difficult, mm-hmm. but it doesn't mean that my world as I know it is over permanently. It is a temporary state of strain. Whereas the death of a child means that life with the child is now no longer existing. It is over. It's not something that'll ever come back. It's not something that's going to change. It means accepting a completely new reality. Mm-hmm. So while we put ourselves through so much strain in issues by thinking it's the end of the world, it's the end of the world, you know, what am I going to do? I lost my job. These, I'm not minimizing them. They are definitely challenges. But when you're faced with the fact that, let's say, you know, I have a dear friend that I mentor who got necrotizing fasciitis. That's the flesh-eating bacteria. He goes to sleep and doesn't know he's in a coma, wakes up with no legs and no hands. That's a problem. His body and his life prior to going to sleep had 2 arms, 2 hands, 2 legs. Waking up without them means that reality is 100% over. Meaning up here, you're going to have to not only go through something difficult, you're going to have to accept a new reality. That's the huge difference between issues and problems. One is a temporary strain that can be extremely difficult, believe me. It can be paralyzing, but it doesn't have to be, because it's not going to end your reality as you know it. Whereas a problem is really, it's going to end your reality as you know. It's going to. And it means it's going to involve grief. It's going to involve different approaches, where issues can involve, okay, my current state of reality is there's $2 in my bank account. How do I handle this? You know, and you can map out a plan towards it. Whereas a problem is, okay, I don't have any legs. That means I have to mourn the life that I lost, the legs that I lost, not only move forward and make a plan for how I'm going to handle not having any legs, but up here I have to accept a new reality, which is a totally different process. And I think the more that people can get perceptions on what an issue is, you won't let it stand in your way. I mean, you'll be surprised how much just stuff stands in the way of you. And the reason being is because it seems like it's the end of the world and it seems insurmountable. It's not. It's a temporary strain. That's all it is. Again, find that rose. The landmines are probably problems. The issues are not landmines. They're thorns. You know, this is not making me happy today. It's hard, but it's not going to change the world as I know it. So it's important to identify them because there's so much. I mean, we all know the monkey in our head, right? I know I have it. I'm sure you have it too.
Yeah.
That, oh, well, I probably shouldn't do this. And it just goes. Well, part of the way of quieting that is when you realize it's talking about something that like really, do you ever like wait so long to do something or procrastinate on something and you're like, oh, you've made it into this huge thing. And then you do it and you're like, huh, that was no big deal.
Yeah.
That's not how we end up being, thinking, oh no, I'll never get another job, and I'll never get out of this relationship, and I'll never get this, and a lot of it is an issue up here, and just quiet that down. Mm-hmm. Problems are totally different. It's going to require a complete new set of a reality, and learning how to adjust, mourn, and accept that. That's a different process.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I think if readers are going to get one thing from your book, it's freedom. Right. I mean, that's really what all of these principles contribute to, is building helping you find a sense of freedom and breaking through all of the restrictions, most of which we place on ourselves.
Most of them are self-imposed. And Jen, that's just it. If you really want to look at what no reserve means, is to take away the reserves of your life, to live this limitless life. When you ever, particularly since social media came around, seeing other people's birth. I mean, I always used to love that quote, I hope your life is half as good as it looks on social media. People compare themselves to these ideals that they think are out there, and they think, oh, I'll never have that. The truth of the matter is, really, you should only be comparing yourself to yourself. Can I be a better version of me from yesterday? And can my life get better from where it was? The answer is it can. It 100% can. And I've got 99% of the people out there generally are just themselves, are the one reserve that is standing in their way. And so all these different practices ultimately get back to the same thing. When are you going to wake up and not say that, oh, well, I'll get happy when? I'll do this when? You only have right now. And there's absolutely no reason for you to make the shift right now and live the life without reserve, the life you've been dreaming of, limitlessly, going all in on yourself. It's amazing, on yourself. So yeah, it's there's a series of practices, I think 11 in total. And ironically, here I am, an author that took 9 years to write this, and because I lived it. It's not like, even the 5-year stint where, for those of you that are listening, yes, I was hit by a car and suffered a brain injury. 8 months later, the father of my children, who, even though we were divorced, was like my best friend since I was 18, he did shoot himself. On top of that, I had fallen wildly in love with a wonderful man, blended our families, and were engaged and going to do all that. And my +1 child died by suicide. And all of these things together, they were years apart. So while this was happening, I was doing all the practices that are in the book. And I remember someone saying to me, like, how do you keep getting up? How do you keep getting these literally landmines and getting up? And that's because I kept going back to these practices. And now, since they're so neatly organized in a book and people have read them, they revisit them. And so do I. Exactly what you're talking about. You went to read through and got this new sense. I go back and read it again. And I like that there are pages, empty pages between them, to take notes and do it. And I do it myself. And some people have been sending me their answers via social media and whatnot. And I'm collecting them because it's been really freeing to see, and men in particular. As a woman, I wrote this book, not necessarily for women, but I mean, I'm experiencing life as a woman, right? So I gave you all these practices. So it was really fascinating to hear men in their 50s, 60s, even 70s. You think at that point in time, you have a lot of knowledge that are like, this is applicable to where I am today in my job, where I am in my career, where I am as a husband, a father, all of this. So it's really been a very, very tremendous gift, particularly in the midst of COVID-19 and the unrest that's going on in the world, to find people finding solace in this, and finding hope. Hope is huge. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So I agree. I mean, just going through the journaling practices again and going through those exercises, it was amazing to me to recognize or to discover that what I thought was holding me back from the things that I wanted was not actually, the things that were holding me back. And so the practices that you outline in your book, for those who are listening, who might, want to check into it, will take you on that journey itself to really figure out what things are holding you back, and how can you overcome those to attain, the goals that you have, and checking in with those goals then yearly and finding out which ones, you're still retaining and which ones are no longer relevant. It is a continual fluid process that we keep going through. And I love that about it.
Jen, it's as much as this has been, we are in the midst of world history. There's an honor to that, it is stressors and all the rest of it, but this is something our children's will study for years. And so for many people, picking up a book and thinking, okay, this made me feel a certain way. There's nothing like having that moment. You're like, yes, I'm going to do it. And then you just walk out into your real life and you stop. You don't do it.
Yeah.
The good is that we've all kind of gotten a giant pause button through this. It's a perfect time to start. If you've had any excuses and you go through these exercises, it's like what you said. The first thing people go is the aha moment when they go, that was an issue. That's not even really a problem. Why am I spending so much of my life obsessing over this one thing when really, like, sometimes I'll get a letter back that said, within a week, I overcame it and I'm now living everything I want to do. I have the job I want. I have the relationship I want. And I'm thinking, I love hearing that. I love it. I'm working with a woman that reached out to me that's homeless in Canada. We're in 2 separate countries. And somehow an article about me came across and she reached out and we're walking through the exercises in the book. And one of the first things she said is, I'm stuck at chapter 1, like the first set of exercises. And we walked through and I said, why? She said, because I don't think I've ever really sat down to find, like, I've taken care of everybody else.
Yeah.
I've done what everybody else needs. And how I'm here with my husband incarcerated is because I'm just still taking care of everybody else. So when you ask me, what are my core values and what is it I really want? She goes, I don't think I've ever asked myself that. So these are some things, it seems so simple, right? Do you know how many people don't take the time to ever really know what is your dream life? What would your life look like if it were limitless? If you removed the reserves and you actually had everything you want? Do you even know what you want? You'd be amazed. That to me is the greatest gift so far in the release of this book, is to hear from the public, like, wow, I didn't even really know that I'm not even in touch with myself at all. So in order to get the reserves off, it would be nice to even know what I want, and then how easy it was to do some adjusting and some exercises to really focus in on that and go for it and get it. That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And we love to hear that. If you have one of those stories after reading Letitia's book, we encourage you to share them on social, tag Letitia in it, and use the hashtag no reserve so that we're able to see and build community around these ideas. I love that. About not feeling enough. And so once we identify the things that we want or what our dream life is, that little monkey gets in our brain and starts saying, okay, you're not enough, or you don't have enough resources. So you talk about starting where you're at, giving with what you have, and building equity through your action. So what would be your advice to somebody right now who's like, gosh, I know the things I want, I know what I'm passionate about, but I feel like I don't know where to start, and I feel like I don't have anything to get myself started in that direction. What advice would you share with them?
That's kind of what this woman was talking about from Canada. So here's the thing, there's 2 sides to this coin that you have to understand in truly becoming and going for the life you want. One is your own sense of value, and one is what other people put in valuing you. And there's 2 practices that go with making that coin complete. So let's talk about how other people would put value in you. So that means, like, let's say you want to enter a new field or anything. Why would somebody be like, go to bat for a perfect stranger? I don't know you from Adam. You're in a new environment. How do you build value for other people to be like, you know what? I'm going to go to bat for this girl or this guy. I'm going to get them an interview. How you do that is keeping your word. It's really interesting in life how much value we've placed on things and status and how many people you have on your social media and all these different, types of definitions of success and value, when truthfully the greatest thing you own is your word. You'd be surprised how few people actually keep it. It's amazing. And I always tell people one of the easiest things to test is, like, start with your kids or your dogs or your pets. Did you say we'd go to the park today, we'd play, whether it was your kid or your dog? Did you say something and then you don't? If you can't keep a simple word even to them, how are you doing it with your friends? How many times you said, yes, I will be there for you on Thursday? Did you? Did you follow through? The reason why this puts value, it also affects you, is because if you're not like, if you promised your children that you're going to go read after school, I mean, unless, you got a car accident or something, there's a foreseeable way to explain to them, I didn't do it today, but we'll do it tomorrow. But keep your word, because if you can't, how are you going to keep your word to yourself? If you're not keeping your word to anyone else, then you're not keeping it to yourself, and then you're never going to get anywhere. So if you start keeping your word to people, meaning like, we need someone to stay in late today. Let's say you've been wanting to be in music forever and you don't really know. So you got yourself a job as a bouncer at a cool blues club just because you wanted to get in and around it.
Sure.
And then suddenly people, how are you going to get from bouncer to be, singing on stage or playing something, even though you can? Well, why would they give you that shot? Well, if all of a sudden they were like, we're having trouble because we need someone to stay late, or, the electrician's coming in on Sunday morning. Is there anyone that would consider coming in early? Yeah, I will do that. And you keep your word. And then they know, like, you keep keeping your word. Wow, this person showed up. You know what? I'm going to do this for you. And you keep keeping your word. Then when that opening comes, they're going to say, you know what? That guy at the front that's always keeping his word, the coolest bouncer, he said he can sing. Maybe we'll give him the shot, because you created value of yourself as a human being in their eyes. So they're going to go to bat for you. And at the same time, when you do that, if you can keep your word to other people, you're going to start keeping it to yourself. So when you do say, I'm going to eat better, I'm going to be more balanced in my life, I'm going to drink less, or I'm going to stop smoking, or, whatever that thing is for you, you're never going to, the New Year's resolutions are a giant joke on all of us, who really keeps them. It's because you can't keep your word. So building your equity through your actions means showing up, holding yourself accountable to you, and keeping your word to others. And there's a great story of a girl named Tamara that I mentored in the book that, when you're smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day since you were 12 and now you're 40, nicotine is one of the most addictive substances in the world. I mean, that's a hard habit to break. And she wants to work for me, and she's missing teeth. And I'm like, look, how am I going to go to a dentist and ask him to donate $40,000 worth of dental work for a girl I don't even, why would I do that? And suddenly she says, well, I know what I can do. I can stop smoking. And I'm thinking, yeah, right. Lots of people say that. And the girl never touched another cigarette as long as she lived.
Wow.
My respect for her went through the roof, because that is such a hard feat. So many people say they're going to do that and don't do that, and then don't stick with it. So sure, yeah, I went to bat for her. I went and got the dentist, got her teeth fixed. She's doing amazing. She's working a 6-figure salary. She went from a forklift to a business office. And I mean, she's got the life of her dreams because she went all in. But part of going all in is to keep your word. If you say you're going to do something, do it, because her value, in my opinion, as soon as I saw her do that, I'm like, I'm going to bat for her. And
right.
how many people, I've seen people do hiring, and let's say you're not necessarily the most qualified person via your technological skills or background or how much time you've had in something, but you're the person that is always there when you say you're there. You are always actually keeping every single word you ever made. They get hired. They get hired over other people. And that's why you're thinking, why did this person get hired? I have more experience. I guarantee you that person doesn't break their word, because it builds equity. So that's one of the most important things for people to understand. There's 2 sides to this and going all in. One is your value from within, which we'll get to, which has to do with giving, to build that sense of value coming up from inside you when you're feeling like you're down to nothing. And the other is to start keeping your word. And when you want to just practice it, keep it with your dog. I said we'd have a walk today, then have it. Keep it with your kids, keep it with your loved one. That helps. And then it'll start trickling out from there, where you're starting to keep it with your boss, and you keep it with your colleagues, and you keep it with your friends. And the next thing you know, when your name comes up, everyone goes, you know what? That's a stellar person. I'd go to bat for that person, because he or she is always where she said she'll be, always comes through, never let me down. That's equity.
Yeah, and that's such a great point right now, because especially in a really tough job market. I mean, I was just talking with one of our other authors about, people who are graduating right now, who are looking for jobs, but also people who may have been laid off or furloughed, or, who are looking for new opportunities. They may have in their mind a certain position that they think they're qualified for based on like their education and expertise. And so that may be their focus. And so they might be setting a reserve on themselves by saying, this is the only thing that I am suitable for. Yeah. But you could be building your way toward a really amazing opportunity by, taking that reserve off, taking that limitation off, and opening yourself up to just putting in value in areas that are, you know, relevant to your interests, to your passions, and then you can get there, you know, because this will pass. And then think about the equity you've built through your actions, right?
And it happens to me all the time. Someone will call me and say, you know, we have this opening for this. Who can you think of? It's funny. I rarely think immediately of talent so much as character. And I know that people actually would rather, you can learn a skill. Character is something you seek out. So when you actually keep your word, you build equity, which is to build character, meaning that people will go to bat for you and opportunities and doors will open for you. And so it's a very important practice that we step away from. And like I said, just I've done it. Yeah, we're going to go to the park today. And then we don't. So just start with that. Start with the inner circle of people in your everyday life and yourself. You know, if you said you weren't going to have 3 cups of coffee, then don't, you know. I know it's hard, but as you do that, what happens is people notice. Everyone around you notices, you know, and then you start keeping your word from them. You show up, and what you're building is equity in your reputation, equity in being the kind of person that maybe you don't know exactly how to operate a particular machine or type X amount of words a minute. I bet you we can teach you that in a week. But finding the right character of the person we know we can always rely on, that's where the money comes in. That's where the paycheck comes in. And they're like, you know what? That's who's hiring. And that's how you get a raise, PS, and promotion. Keep your word.
Yeah, absolutely. Putting in that value. So as people are going through this, you know, surely they'll encounter the landmines. And so one of the strategies that I'd love to talk more about is your concept of SOS versus restraints, right? So what happens when, you know, people are sailing along, they're putting in that value, but then they encounter a landmine, and you offer these strategies for activating sources of strain. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about what those are. And also importantly, because I think this is really hard, you know, we might know the things that make us feel better in different situations, but how do we know, what are the cues we can look for when we need to actually activate those, you know, before it's too late?
So this is one of the exercises because you want to write them down. Sources of strength. So SOS in the old days is, you know, a ship, and people think it's save our ship. It was actually save our souls. And that's the idea. That's what we're trying to do here. Because when you're in the flow, and we all know the feeling, like everything's going our way. That's what I mean. Like when you come out of something and you're so jazzed and you're feeling great about yourself, and then boom, somebody just yucks your yum and here it comes. How do I get back to that space I was in? You know, I was doing so well. So one of the things is that I talk a lot about giving back and things too. Once you're in a disastrous landmine, like when I had my brain injury, I'm not thinking right. So identifying things while you're in a good space. Okay. So you're in a good space. What are my sources of strength? So for me, absolutely 100% running. I love to run, particularly. I'm not on a treadmill. I mean, that'll get the job done, but that's not what I mean. I like nature, beaches, mountains, deserts, running. So I know, even when I'm literally, like, let's say in grief, and you're just can barely put a foot in front of you and you're just crying all day. If I see the sneakers within an eye shot, I sometimes will just throw my legs off the bed into those shoes and just head out, even if I feel like I have the weight of the world on me. And a mile into it, I can suddenly feel myself opening up back to that space. So for me, that's it. And running shoes are easy. I can bring them anywhere. So having those within an eye shot helps me. I know, I'm sure we all do, certain songs that can instantly bring back good memories, as well as certain songs, no go, don't put those on. It's an instantaneous crying, you know, and ball. So identifying those things that really put you in that space. So even, this is going to sound funny because this morning I had an alarm go off, and I chose this song so long ago, and now that COVID's here, I'm normally on a plane like 7 days a week. So I'm in. Apologize about that. So anyway, my song that I wake up to is "Ain't No Mountain High Enough" by Diana Ross. And so whenever, you know, who hates the alarm song, you know? So when that goes off, I hear right away, I instantly am like, the hair on my back is up. I'm like, you know, that's a good way to start your day. My ringtone is Rocky because my kids always said, Mom, you can't give up. You got to go. So music can be an integral part for me. That doesn't mean it's for you.
No,
you
it
know?
definitely does. Yeah.
So it's identifying those things that are for you. For me, like, for example, I had a woman who is older and went through a very, very borderline suicide phase in her life from a loss of a child.
Mm-hmm.
And you really don't expect that as someone in their 60s or 70s. And she did. And for her, she had to watch videos of kittens, like literally anything on YouTube that you could find, just show me kittens playing. That's her thing. Okay. I like the dog things, but that she identified something that no matter how dark she was getting, if she watched enough just videos on YouTube of kittens, she could come back to some sort of I can breathe, you know? So it's identifying what they are. Is it cooking? Is it certain people? We all know that we have the people that feed us, and then we know we have the people that feed off us. You know, a source of strength too is I can tell you there's certain people no go. It's a no fly zone when I'm in that spot. It's not that they're not good people. I like them, but I don't have anything. I know what's going to happen. I'm going to be sucked dry. That's not good. I know the people that I can go to that instantly bring something to me. You know, so for me, like sources of strength, particular music. I love to cook. And again, cooking, I like, because I have kids, I'll start cooking thinking it's a chore, but halfway through it, I'm kind of laughing and I'm enjoying it. And maybe some music's on and suddenly I think, oh, I'm actually in a much better space than I was. So it's really about identifying those things so that when, you know, again, most likely most of you are going to be in the middle of an issue and think it's the end of the world. These things will snap you out of an issue in 5 seconds. But when or should you have a true landmine, a true end of reality as you know it, someone has passed away, you have a severe disfigurement, whatever that is, then these things are something you revisit on a daily basis so that you can keep coming back to center. Because there's nothing worse than finally being like, I can breathe today, I actually feel good, and then suddenly it all falls away. So these things that, again, what I spoke about in the beginning, my life had always been joy with a few moments of despair. Suddenly it's a giant life of despair with a couple moments of joy. Well, sources of strength started to bring back those little moments of joy. You start doing enough of them, and those shifts in that balance goes back to a life of joy with a few moments of despair. It's a great way to get those scales back to where they need to be.
Love that.
Yeah, they work.
Yeah. And I had to laugh because as soon as you said the thing about music, I immediately knew, like, yes, there is that song that I cannot listen to. And if I do listen to it, I'll love it, but I'll get stuck in that mental space that I don't need to be in. Right. But similarly, there's music that absolutely uplifts, and we share the exercise thing. But yeah, just identifying those strategies that, you know, help you get through and regain perspective in those moments. And
Jen, it's really important that people understand. Identify them when you're in a good space. Don't wait when you're in this really bad place and be like, what makes me feel good? Even like write them down where you can see them. My daughter did this after her father died. She put them where she could see them every day walking out of her room as a simple reminder. Because when you're in a good space, you can be like, yeah, I'm having the best day today. That's the day you want to write them down.
Right.
You want to write them down and keep them where they're clear and you can see them. Because once you're in a true tidal wave of a landmine, and you're just desperate. So don't think that that's the time to suddenly be like, I think I'll start volunteering and I think I'll figure out what my sources of strength are. No, take it on a good day, write it all down, identify it, and then keep it where you can see it.
Yeah. And people might have resistance to writing things down because they might be like, oh, that's you know, silly, I don't need that. But you do. Like, we all do. We all need these reminders right in front of us, especially on our bad days, because if we don't encounter our words to ourselves, right, we won't put them into practice. We won't.
True. It's, you know, back in the days that vision boards became very popular and people were kind of visualizing what their life looked like, you know, then they'd stick them in a drawer. That's not the point. You know, you need to be like smacked on your mirror right in front of you. And so, you know, while a vision board is a vision outside of you, these are practices to create that feeling on the inside all the time so that you, should you get off track, you can get right back to where you should be on track and living your life without any reserve. No, you're all in. It's everything you ever dreamed of. You're actually totally engaged in it. And, you know, along comes something horrible. How do I get back? This is it. It'd be horrible for me to write a book teaching people how to get to the life they always wanted. And then P.S. when it's gone, good luck. You know, I have to put things in there because I got to the life I wanted. And then these huge landmines came along and threatened to take it from me. So I had to figure out, okay, I know how to get to that place, but now that it's taken, can I get back? And the answer is you can, over and over, over and over. It's over and over.
Absolutely. Won't get into it now, but for those who, you know, haven't picked up the book, you should definitely look into. Letitia has really great content on, progress not always being linear. It is an evolution, it is in flux, and growth requires that brokenness and that ability to piece ourselves back together continually. So just don't get stuck in those moments where you feel like, oh, I'm not on my upward trajectory. You are, it just doesn't look like a diagonal line. It might look like a circle and messy bit.
Again, like, I think when people think upward trajectories are not necessarily always upward, it's forward. And sometimes you not just go through, but grow through things, but you actually feel like you're stuck, but you're actually growing through towards what you want. So, no straight lines.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being here. I'd love to just end with, thinking about how people might be feeling right now, where they might be at. What would be one success strategy or strategy for enriching their souls, enriching their lives that you would give to people right now? If you could just give one piece of advice for something people could be doing, should be doing right now to help themselves get out of a funk, stay out of a funk, and live their best lives.
This is the easiest question you could have asked me. Give. So in giving, and what I mean is it's such a misnomer. And again, someone that's a serial mentor, I love to mentor a young girl, Claire, that was homeless. Now, by the way, house, husband, kids, I love these success stories. Said to me when she was homeless, one of the first things she wanted in a life that she dreamed of was to give, because she noticed that people that give, there's literally a chemical reaction in the body that happens that allows you to suddenly feel good. And so she said, well, giving shouldn't be just for the rich. And I said, well, then you're confusing giving with money. And that's a big difference. Giving of time. I mean, how much of you have time right now? Giving of an ear to listen to someone, being just present, that's a huge gift. How about the elderly that can't leave right now? Maybe their lawn's overgrowing. Maybe you just show up and take care of it for them. Maybe it's a matter of, there's a lot of Facebook Live and Instagram Live. There's kids and people struggling with homework. Maybe you have a set of skills that you could offer a free tutoring session for an hour once a week. Maybe it's reading, I'm bilingual. Maybe it would be finding out a group that I know was young Hispanic children. Maybe I read stories in Spanish and then once in English every week. It doesn't mean money, but whenever you give of yourself, it's just that. It means to get out of yourself. So if you're in this funk and you're in this horrible time, there's all this stress, it's a moment out of that. And when you do it, two things happen. Number one, it literally is a chemical reaction in the body that allows you to suddenly feel a moment of a little expression of joy, like, wow, this feels really good to give. And then the second part about it is that what you really want to know is that when you're looking at someone that maybe has had a horrible day or can't mow their lawn or can't leave their house or has a loved one in the hospital, and they look at you and say, thank you, you really helped me today. You know what happens? That little meter inside of you comes up and your own value of yourself comes up. And then maybe your life doesn't look as bad as you think it does. And in giving, oftentimes when you think you have a problem, it'll really be an issue when you give to someone and realize that person has it a lot worse than you do. These are all connectivity, really about life. We're all in this together. And as you go to give time lessons, if you have money, great, then give money. But please don't confuse the two and don't deny yourself the sheer moment of joy you'll get in doing it, as well as lighting up someone else's life at the same time. And both of you moving forward, again, not straight up, forward in the vision that you have for yourself, for the life that you've dreamed of.
Thank you so much, Letitia. I'm sure everybody will really benefit from everything you've shared. So definitely, if you haven't already done so, go grab a copy of Letitia's book, No Reserve, Take Ownership and Live Your Life without limitations. Thanks again for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Jen. A huge pleasure. And thanks again to all of you out there. Stay safe, stay healthy, and go after that life you want, because there's no greater time than right now.
Absolutely.